I started my YouTube channel a few years ago, and I have been through eras where my channel has totally flopped and I thought it would never grow, to more recently my channel growing the most it ever has, and for it becoming my primary channel to help grow my business and my brand as a creator. There's definitely things I wish I would have known sooner when I was first starting that I think would have made growing a lot easier and helped me grow a lot faster. So I'm going to be sharing 7 things that I would do differently if I were to start from zero again. The first thing is that thumbnails and titles are almost as important as your actual video content. I like to think about how people consume YouTube content when I'm thinking about these 2 elements of my video. There are people that are seeing it in their subscription box that are already subscribed to your channel, and then there's all the ways that people are actually discovering your content. Maybe it's in Google search or them searching directly in YouTube. Maybe it's on the side recommendations. Maybe it's on the home page. But essentially, you want people to see your thumbnail, to read your title, and to instantly want to go over and watch your video, even if they have absolutely no clue who you are. And a big mistake I see new YouTubers make is actually making their thumbnail and their title almost the same thing. You essentially want them to complement each other. One thing that I love about YouTube is they give you so much insights and data, and I have been doing more A/B testing with my thumbnails where I might have like 4 thumbnails running at a time. Sometimes we're tweaking things like the actual copy, but sometimes we're also playing around with different visuals. What does it look like if we have screen grabs and screenshots on the thumbnail? What does it look like for it to be more collage-like? And the more and more you A/B test your thumbnails, the more data you get to actually improve them. If you are looking for some thumbnail inspiration, just go and search a few different things on YouTube or just see what's populating for you on your YouTube homepage. Chances are you'll see a lot of bold text that's really easy to read, whether it's really big in your subscriptions or a lot smaller on the side. Chances are you'll also see a lot of people in your thumbnails, so you want to make sure you're like really in your thumbnail. And usually there's visually interesting elements that really makes it pop. And of course you want to make this on brand for you. Like there are tons of bro-y thumbnails that obviously is not appealing or on brand for me. So I don't lean into those, even if that's something that works for other people in my niche. And creating great thumbnails are super easy. All I like to do is pose a little bit at the beginning of when I'm recording, and then we essentially like to just create the thumbnails directly in Canva. The next thing kind of goes hand in hand with your thumbnails and titles, and it's making sure that when you're actually creating your content, within those first few seconds, your hook, that you're actually delivering on what your thumbnail and title promises. Something I was so guilty of when I first started on YouTube is I just assumed that because it was longer form, I could talk more longer form. I could be a little more wordy. I could ramble a little bit more. I could start the video giving lots of context. This was such a big mistake. You don't want to stuff the beginning of your video with all this context, talking about what you're going to talk about, introducing yourself, or even worse, doing one of those like little like montages or like on brand intros. Like I just feel like that is not in for YouTube in 2025. My video started doing better when I started really delivering on what the video was about, and I had a very clear structure and flow, so they actually were able to follow along and get what they actually came for. So now when I'm outlining my videos, I'm really focusing on those first few seconds of how can I deliver on what my thumbnail, my title, and this video topic is about. Say clearly what it's about, who it's for, and get right into it. And then I like to structure things into main points or tips or something that makes it really easy to digest. And I try to keep all of them around the same length. A big mistake that I was doing as well is I might have some sections where I'm talking about something in a really robust way, and then another one that might be a smaller tip, which also kind of goes to how I think about my topics a lot differently. I used to want to go deep and talk about all the things because it's longer form. So I could talk longer about more things. But I found that being more specific on what the video is about allows me to get more ideas from my content, but also not overstuff things so I really can deliver on that result of the video. Trust me, I want you to enter your long form era. I want you to love YouTube too. But if you struggle to be concise in short form content, it is honestly even harder in long form. So don't just assume that longer feels better for you and it's going to be easier to create YouTube content. You still have have to be intentional about your hook, those first few seconds, and about how you actually structure and the flow of your content. The 3H's framework. This is hub, help, and hero. Once I learned this framework, it helped thinking about my content ideas become a lot easier, and it really made my channel well-rounded. Because when I first started my channel, it was a lot of tips, it was a lot of tutorials, which did well, but long-term for my brand and my channel just didn't make sense for a holistic strategy. And this is what I see a lot of new YouTubers do, is they think, oh, I'm gonna go all in on vlogs because I love vlogging and I love watching vlogs. Or I'm gonna go all in on education because I'm a coach. And that makes a lot of sense for my industry and how I work with clients. But you actually want to touch on a lot of different formats in your content strategy. Hub content is a lot more focused on your internal community, your current subscribers, or if you're totally starting from scratch, people that are already in your audience, maybe on your newsletter or in your Instagram community. You're creating content where people want to connect deeper with you, and this is actually where those vlogs and more behind the scenes really come in. Really big creators that already have a great following see lots of success of putting together random day in the life or week in the life vlogs, but this is not going to work for you if you are wanting to grow a new audience or even start from scratch on a platform like YouTube. So when I like to think of my strategy, I like to sprinkle in vlogs and more hub content. Maybe every quarter. It's a very small part of my strategy, but when I post a vlog, like, my community lines up and eats that stuff up, but that is not getting recommended. It is not reaching a lot of new people. And then we have help, which essentially is educational, how-to, kind of tip-based content. I don't want you to be like me and make the mistake of going all in on this type of content just because you naturally are a creator, educator, or a service provider, or you have courses or things like that. This is really great for people that are already in your community, but also for reaching new people. It's great for being recommended, for people to find it in search. And it's a great way to tie into calls to action, like growing your email list or even talking about your offers. This definitely is what I would say like 70% or more of my content, and what I really like to lean on because it makes sense for my niche and my industry. And then we have the hero content. This essentially is where you are wanting more of those viral moments. These are more of the hot takes. These are the more of the unpopular opinions. These are more talking on these types of topics that might be timely or people have lots of opinions on. I know I did a video all about how I totally do not recommend faceless content as a strategy. And this was being recommended on videos where people were recommending faceless content. This is really great for thought leadership and really building authority on YouTube. So don't be afraid to lean into your expertise and really what makes you unique in your industry or your niche. And this is another part of my content strategy. I post a little bit more than Hub, but definitely not as much as Help. The reason why this framework is so helpful is because you don't want to go all in on just one of these types of content. Your ratio of things might change depending on how you see your YouTube strategy, but it's a really helpful framework to make sure you're actually seeing results from the content you're creating. Ooh, the next thing that was such a shift for me was realizing that there's a lot of different ways to make money and see an ROI from your YouTube strategy, whether you're a creator or even a business owner. I think a lot of people obsess over AdSense, and I will say it is really nice as someone who has recently gotten Monetize, but it's kind of more of a bonus. It's a bonus income stream for me, and I think a lot of people fixate on that, thinking they're gonna make thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, but like, I think you make less than you think. For me, the places that I see the biggest ROI is brand partnerships. I've made thousands and thousands of dollars from video integrations and ad spots that I've done in my YouTube content. Also from sharing my own offers and products. So not only have I been able to grow my email list, which I have an entire case study on, I've also been able to sell my offers, like my workshop that I just recently hosted. And I also just had a sales call recently where she said she literally binged my YouTube channel. There's also other things like affiliate marketing, which I even make a few $100s a month on, but it really is thinking about like, what are your main offers? If you're a creator, is it brand partnerships? If you're more of a business owner and you have offers or services, is it that? There's a way you can use your YouTube channel to increase the sales and money you're making from that. I like to think of the affiliate side of things and AdSense as like a total bonus and almost something that I'm building for more long-term reoccurring revenue that doesn't require me to always be pumping out content. The next part is consistency. And I just did an entire episode about this because I feel like consistency is a really complex topic. But I feel like there's this assumption that you have to do at least weekly YouTube videos to see success on the platform. And I have never done multiple months of weekly content. Like that is just not sustainable for me right now. That is definitely the goal. That is definitely what we're working towards. But I think there's ways that you can see success with a consistent posting schedule without going full send and then like burning out on your YouTube channel. So I like to do kind of quarterly spurts of weekly content, like my Simple Video Systems series. Series are naturally an easy way to do this, but it doesn't have to be a series for it to be like a weekly stint of content. And my goal from there is bi-weekly content. So I'm doing a video maybe every other week, and at the bare minimum, at least one video a month. That's kind of been my guidelines for the past few years on my channel. And definitely when I'm posting weekly, like I'm seeing growth in my channel, but also when I'm posting less than monthly, I've definitely seen a decline in growth. So I'm not saying you have to do weekly content, but I'm saying long-term big vision, you need to be consistent. I knew so many people that wanted to enter their YouTube era in 2025, and they went all in. 6 weeks of content, 2 months of content, a series, some videos. And then they were like, wow, that was hard. I did too much. I was doing the most. And then their YouTube channel has cobwebs. So do not do that, at least one a month. Ideally, every other week. Bonus points if you can nail weekly, but batch, work ahead, and that really will help you. I like to plan my YouTube content a quarter at a time so I can stay ahead of filming and batching, and I'm never falling behind just because things get busy. The next thing is kind of like a hack, I guess you could say, and it is knowing timeliness and relevancy as it relates to your niche on YouTube. Depending on what's going on in the world or what just happens during different times of the year, there are certain types of content you can create to lend towards the types of things people are looking for at that time and really anticipate those kind of hero viral moments. For example, as someone who talks about content and video marketing, I already know Q1 is like my quarter to shine. People are creating their strategies. People are knowing what's working, what's changing, predictions, the whole gamut. And so I always like to double down on content in Q1 above all else. And that was actually a video that went viral for my channel and grew it like by thousands. It has to be by thousands. Grew my channel by a lot. Another example of a piece of timely content I'm doing in my content calendar is actually a Cyber Monday, Black Friday, Q4 holiday sales planning checklist. Content, launching, timeline. I know people are gonna be thinking about that, looking for that. So think about those types of things. It's not necessarily following trends. Like you don't wanna be obsessed with this, but when you can anticipate it, when you can plan for it, these can be really great blips in your channel. And really the last thing is I don't like to say that I ever regret anything that I've done in my business or as a creator, but I definitely wish I would have started sooner. I feel like YouTube feels so different than short form platforms like Instagram. That is where I built a big part of my audience. And I honestly overthought it. I thought I had to have really fancy setup. I thought I had to post multiple times a week. I thought filming a YouTube video would feel totally different than filming a reel. I thought things had to be super polished with really intense edits. And to some extent, yes, YouTube is different. It does require a little bit of a different workflow and a little bit more time filming. But also, I had a lot of the skills that were already transferable. I already knew how to talk to camera. I already knew how to roughly like set up a set to film. And so I think I had a lot of excuses on why I didn't want to start YouTube sooner. And I just wish I would have started. And even when I look back at my channel, as you've seen, like I feel like I've made a lot of mistakes and missed a lot of opportunities for growing faster, but also I got so much data and I got so many reps in. This is always going to be the most underrated content tip you will ever hear on the internet. You need to get your reps in with creating content, with thinking about content, with analyzing content. That is what makes it easier. That is what will help you see better results. And so while I don't regret starting my channel when I did, because I take adding on a new platform to my content ecosystem very seriously. If I'm not gonna stick with it, if I don't have the bandwidth, it's gonna overwhelm me and burn me out, I am not doing it. We're gonna wait, we're gonna sit, we're gonna do what we already have. But I think I had a lot of excuses and I should have started sooner. I should have just started it. So take this as your sign to start your YouTube channel. It is not too late. That's a big piece of baloney. People thinking that you've missed the time to be successful in YouTube is a lie. Don't listen. In fact, I personally think of all the platforms, even if we're not thinking about LinkedIn, it has like the most potential for longevity as a brand and as a creator. So hopefully these lessons and strategies and tips that I've shared will help you, whether you're a newer YouTube or you're wanting to focus more on long form content in your video marketing. I'd love to know which of these tips really resonated the most that you're excited to use, but also what do you struggle most with as you have been working on YouTube and long form content? I might just create a follow-up video on that to help you. I'll see you in my next episode. And if you're wanting to learn more about my 2025 YouTube strategy, I reveal all of it in this video that you can watch next.